couple of things I want to speak about today, and Jill touched on our vulnerable communities and particularly those that are in aged care facilities. I just want to talk briefly about the elderly and ageing that might be still living at home and experiencing, a degree of isolation, even though there have been some restrictions on movement. So there's a bit of an issue emerging that as this isolation, the social distancing draws out, that some of the elderly people living at home are becoming increasingly isolated and experiencing some difficulty. So I'd encourage those people to reach out for support and assistance. Support is out there. And for those that are in contact or know that there are people in that situation, to reach out and actually check on them. So whether they're your relatives or they're your friends or they're your neighbours, well, we do need to continue to practice social distancing when contacting one another. You can go and knock on the door, and you certainly can telephone them and check if they need something. It's very important. There are also state and federal government amenities available to the elderly. The federal government My Aged Care website is a very good one. I'd encourage people to have a look at that website if they've got access to the web and the net, and they do that. And they've also got a hotline that they can call, which is staffed by consultants, and I might get the good people here at MLHD to put that number on their Facebook post. There's consultants there, and there's resources on the web to help the elderly and ageing with, might be financial assistance with their finances, or counselling, or health advice, emotional and psychological well-being, and any number of other things, access to meals or anything they need to get access to. So it's a good website, there's a good video on there. I've had a look at that, so I'd encourage people to have a look at that, or the people that are looking out for and caring for those elderly people when they reside at home. And the other thing for those people out there, the elderly and ageing that are at home, if in doubt or you're really desperate, you can call the police. The police will always come and help those that need help, especially the vulnerable. So you can call the police station, we'll come and do what needs to be done to get you the help. The police will always help. The other thing I wanted to speak about, and there's a bit of an issue or a notion emerging about workers, and particularly the casual workers, who may not necessarily be eligible for social security assistance, and some of the things have been held out, particularly by the federal government. And concerned that as casual workers, if they identify they might have symptoms, get testing and have to spend either a couple of days or perhaps a couple of weeks in isolation, not unreasonable concerns that they may not be able to derive an income during that period. But there's a couple of things I want to say, and it's firstly to employers that might be employing these people. Obviously, employers have extremely stringent WHS obligations to their workers, so they need to identify any risks. And in the current event we're experiencing with this health pandemic, COVID-19 is quite a profound risk. So if they identify a worker or workers that are experiencing symptoms, under WHS, if nothing else, forget the ministerial directions, WHS trumps all. They must cause those employees not to come to work. They must give them advice and direction to seek testing and to isolate, as Jill has said, until testing results are known. If they don't do that, they may well be breaching their WHS obligations, which have extreme ramifications in many cases. And there's a lot of assistance for employers through Safe Work Australia and so forth, and any number of amenities. For workers themselves, they're subject to the same stringent WHS obligations, and that's to identify risks in the workplace, consult with their employer on those risks, and not expose themselves and other workers to risks. So irrespective of whether you're on a casual wage, keep this in mind. You must identify to your employer that you're experiencing symptoms. You must isolate. You must seek testing. There's a fair chance, all going well, the test might come back positive, but you must isolate until such time as you get a negative test. And I know there are concerns about people not deriving income whilst that happens, but bear this in mind. If you go to work and you are positive for this virus and you expose your fellow workers to the virus, there may not be a job for you to go back to later on. So I want you all to bear that in mind. It is tough times, and there are people out there that are on casual wages and they're trying to make ends meet, and it's very hard on people. But look at the bigger picture. You cannot afford to take risks with your health and that of your co-workers. So there is assistance, as I say, through Safe Work Australia, and you should consult with your employer. They have obligations to consult with you and look after you. So those are the two main things I wanted to speak to. obviously the policing operation continues. We saw a relaxation of some of the social distancing protocols last week. I'm pleased to say there have been no fines or arrests made in relation to ignoring the ministerial directions since that time, and people continue to be quite responsible for the most part, with a few exceptions that have resulted in some warnings. So we'll continue to police those directions, and you know, there may be some easing of those in the future. Certainly there will be at some point, and we'll continue to support health and the minister in relation to enforcing what we need to. So I'm going to leave it there. I think there might be some questions later on about some policing matters, but I might address those when we're not streaming live. So thank you.